it went from like a pretty big high, making a lot of money, to a pretty hard low very, very quickly.
Hey, it's Jason Shafton, and welcome to Frank Growth, the podcast where we delve into the complexities of business and personal growth and talk to partners navigating the delicate balance of building a family, a career, and their business. As always, I'm joined in life and on this podcast by my beautiful and very pregnant wife, Alyssa Fox.
I just agreed to do this so I could spend more time with you.
Oh,
that nice. And make sure you're not too boring.
Well, I don't think this will be boring at all, because in this episode, we're talking to Jessica and Marshall Morris. Jessica has a really interesting background in real estate finance and law, and she moved from that into a dedicated mom role for her two sons, Madden and Fox. And she also moonlights as a political strategist for a nonprofit. And Marshall is a devoted husband, father, and Army veteran, and he's a pioneering serial internet entrepreneur. His journey is marked by the successful creation and sale of numerous for-profit and for-purpose-driven internet ventures. And his current venture enriches the lives of pets and the people who love them. We can relate to that, Alyssa, through diverse e-commerce and media platforms, demonstrating an impactful commitment to societal good. They have provided over 30 million meals to shelter dogs and contributed $1.5 million to support veterans with PTSD.
That's really sweet. I'm sure most of our listeners don't know this, but Winston Francois is actually named after our two dogs, Winnie and Frank, and I'm constantly trying to make sure Jason doesn't bring home more.
It is a risk that I will adopt every puppy and have all the babies with you.
But it's a sweet risk.
Yeah.
One I'm willing to take.
It's nice, as is obvious right now.
We should get Marshall and his wife on so we can talk about the risks they've taken and how that has, affected their home life, their business life, all facets.
Agreed. So let's talk to Marshall and Jessica.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. Jessica and Marshall, welcome to Frank Growth. So let's start with the origin story of your companies, and your family. Give us the story.
Marshall and I met at work in 2006. And within that one first exciting year, we wouldn't have ever imagined we would have quit our jobs, started our very first business, and been married within the next 12 months. We pivoted many times over the next 17 years, 18 years.
Yep, a lot.
What came first? The marriage or the business?
Well, Vegas happened first. That's the truth. And then there was Vegas, then there was a relationship.
Yes. So this is what the kids don't know yet. Okay. We actually went on a company paid trip for the high performers to Las Vegas, where we found out we liked each other. And what happened in Vegas did not stay in Vegas. We came back.
Actually, the fun story was we missed our plane and we spent all our money. And I had to play craps to rent a car to get home. And then we slammed a Coors Light and went to work.
Yep.
That's like the story. So it was, yeah.
Am I remembering correctly that perhaps one of you might have been the direct report of another one of you, or did you not work for each other? You just worked together?
We worked together. My role was, I basically had a team of salespeople, but he was my highest performer. So I paid him a little more attention. I'm not going to lie. I probably can't say that, but
you can say it now.
I can say it now.
Yeah, nobody's going to fire you over it.
And that first company you started, it was also in the kind of mortgage sector, right?
Yeah, like we launched it, we pushed all the chips, and we're like, all right, run up every credit card. Because in business, you think you see someone operating, you think you can just do it. Like you just see the front of it and you're like, oh, that's easy. Like it's just like they do this and they do that. And obviously it's far more complex than that. And so I just ran every credit card up I had and took all the money I had, and then got an office and hired friends and oh, this is going to be easy. And then, and I'm like, hey, want to come with me? And she's like, okay. And then literally a couple months later, the whole banking market fell apart. No loans were being taken or submitted. And so there was it was okay, well, everything I have is in this. There's nothing else outside of it. And so I tried to salvage that as long as we could. And then from there, I mean, we really just, it was just a whole fallout, like having cars repossessed, like everything you can imagine, just like, so you hit complete rock bottom to where we both were unemployed, like basically homeless, and our parents let us stay at their house, but we had to stay at their house in another state.
It went from like a pretty big high,
Yeah.
making a lot of money, to a pretty hard low very, very quickly.
How did you guys find each other as a support in that time? Like, were one of you more emotionally supportive and the other one was more tactical? Like, how did you kind of find yourselves naturally delegating? Because I feel like that can either really make or break people, and you guys are still here.
I think there were times where like it was definitely really challenging. I think personally, I was very optimistic, like overly optimistic. And now I was like, man, you should have had a little more of a reality check about what was possible, and like that this would work out, like that big deal would come in, you know what I mean? Those kind of things. So I think that, but honestly, we only had each other. Like that's it. Like we didn't have family close by. We didn't have friends close by. We moved to a town so we could live for free, and there's no one we knew there.
Who came up with the idea of what ended up being the off-ramp for you guys? Where like you were in this kind of like feedback loop, it sounds, right? And then something somehow kind of like, really shot you out of that. Like, what was that like?
I don't think it happened really intentionally. I think that there was, like Marshall mentioned, he was really optimistic. He's always been a big thinker, a big dreamer, and just would go after, hard things. And there were actually many times where we relied on going back into the workforce, or we swapped. Like I took jobs in banking while he would work on building. And sometimes we just took whatever jobs we could find and with our skill set that we had to fall back on while we built something on the side.
Mhm.
And we became, I think, really expert problem solvers, because we actually were faced with a lot of problems that required solving, things you couldn't just sleep on. You couldn't spend a month in bed with the blinds closed. You had to start, like you had to figure out where you're going to get your next meal from. You had to figure out where you're going to get your toilet paper, like solving problems that you needed to solve. So that, I think we realized we were a good team from a really early on. This was right after we got married. So we were kind of growing up together and getting to know each other still. I think Marshall was able to build a lot. When you have a loss, it's really easy to focus solely on the financial, monetary, material things that are going away, right? Because it hurts, and it's not petty. It hurts, but you also lose old rhythms and routines and distractions, and you lose old mindsets, and when everything is when your normal is now gone, when you have no normal, you have this opportunity to curate more. And I think that's what he's really good at. He's more of a creative thinker and, like, again, bigger dreamer. And so I think while I tried to support us in just the corporate world, he was able to really start building and spending, having less pressure to build and supply for the for me. So we kind of split the load, I think, at that point.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I mean, that's actually how Jason and I currently split roles. Like, I have the more traditional job, and he goes out there and kind of like really tries hard to come up with crazy stuff. And then I find myself being like, that might be a little too crazy. I try really hard not to rain on his parade, but at the same time be the voice of reason. So yeah, I totally get that kind of division of labor. It makes a lot of sense.
But it sounds like that balance helped you guys get through the hardest of the lows and get back to the highs that I know you've got lots of highs now to celebrate. And I remember you have 2 boys, which is something I want to touch on. So let's talk about parenting and what you've learned in that journey. Are there specific things in terms of your values or the principles that you've picked up from your parenting experience that have actually helped you in business, and vice versa? Like, are you able to kind of trade that expertise from one side of the life to the other?
I think so. I think one of the ways that with kids, it's like every kid is so different, and when you're dealing with a lot of different people, for me, it is a reminder that like everyone has like the same core needs, but it may be expressed differently, right? Like, and so I think with our kids, they're radically different. Like we'll talk about one of our kids is like a skunk, so when he's upset, like you'll feel it, but you won't see it. The other one's like a viper; he'll spit. Like he lets you know, it comes out of his mouth, right? And like they're so different, but they have the same needs, right? And so I think that in business specifically, one of the things I think that has made me successful and the business is successful is actually relationships, 100%. And for me to go into something and understand somebody and how they work and how they think, and know that like I may be reading that they're really aggressive, or I may be reading that they don't, like there's conflict, but underneath they're actually trying to get to the same thing I am. And so I brought that from parenting too, and vice versa, right? And so I think relationships are really everything. I mean, Jason, like an email could change your life, a phone call could change your life, and it comes from a network of people that want to offer that. So that's one big one I think is understand everyone's such an individual, and really coming to a place of where they are, and understanding where they are. So that's a big one for me, and I learned that from my kids, especially the second one. Right, the first one you're like, oh, they're all like this, like they just come out like this. It's like Pez, one comes out and they're the same. And it's like, wow, they're like from the same place. They're so radically different. So I think that's a big one for me that helped me quite a bit in business.
I love the skunk and the viper. I want to like start using animals to describe children and also people. Like, or do you have like animal names for the people that work for you as well?
Yeah. It's funny.
That's the lion. Don't mess with the lion.
Yep. Yeah. It's like people will tell you it's wrong, or people won't tell you it's wrong, but let you know it. Some of the wisest people I've met in business, it's really they know how to help other people work together, and then that connection that they make is actually how they build great things or things that they want.
So based on that kind of value proposition, right, to say that like so much of business success is relationships, what, or if at all, are you guys doing that you feel passionately about in terms of, introducing your kids as they get older to different entrepreneurial, and also like how do you teach them? I think so much of your story, it resonates with like a balance of responsibility and risk, right? Like how do you instill that in your kids without, like I said, kind of raining on their parade, right? Because I think that is a really hard balance to find, to be like, okay, yes, I'm going to cheer on you being creative. And at the same time, like maybe we learn how to color in the lines for a little bit, right?
That's hard.
That's a great question.
That's extremely hard, I think.
And I would say we have one that's more of a risk taker and one that is more risk averse. Already we can tell. And we can tell that they're creators. And I want you to take this on, but I would just say a parent has so much influence, and I think it has to be used so carefully, because you can use it to light a person's soul on fire in the best way, or to like really put out their light. And I think that, I don't know if it's a generational thing. I've been thinking a lot about this just in my own life as I've gotten into my 40s. I kind of realized a lot of the thoughts and the beliefs that I have had for a very long time, I realized they aren't even mine, some of them. And that they were snuck, and not intentionally, not maliciously, but they were snuck so like discreetly into my little child head and body and brain and heart. And when I realized that I no longer subscribed to so many of the beliefs I had held for so long, I had a hard time knowing like who I am. And so just for the only thing I can really add to this right here about this question in parenting is just, I want to be so careful. I want to follow their breadcrumbs, and I do not want to direct or steer or influence them for as long as possible. And we call it breadcrumbs. Mm-hmm. So whenever we see one of our boys' eyes light up when they're talking about mm-hmm. something, or we hear the fire in their belly, about a topic, I'll tell Marshall, breadcrumbs. Mm-hmm. And then we'll just try to double down on whatever that is. Mm-hmm. So if they're very creative, one of them loves art, we'll we'll never say no to buying art supplies.
Mm-hmm.
If you like to read, we will never say no to reading a book.
Mm-hmm.
We try to go all in where they're directing us instead of taking the wheel. We control enough of their lives. We control everything, and so I want to give them that little area. I don't want to put them
in a box.
Yeah.
Never. Yeah, that's well said.
Mm-hmm.
I love the breadcrumbs thing. I'm going to use that. That's beautiful. And I think, Jess, when you talked about, the light and like taking care of that light and not extinguishing it, and then the imprinting that we all get from our parents and things that we don't even realize that we believe, not because we believe them, but because it just came from the way we were raised through no bad intent. But I think that those are super powerful insights. And then when you're applying that to how they discover their own fire and passion for the things that they care about, and you fuel that passion, I think that's a really lovely way to think about, like, they're going to be unique creatures and find their own path. When I think about what you guys have been through, the word that just keeps passing through my head is resilience. And so I wonder how you think about imprinting resilience on your kids, and then specifically like the hardest transition that you've gone through as a couple. How much of that do they know about, and do they understand at this point? And like, maybe just talk a little bit more about like, what was that hardest thing, and how has that shaped your relationship, your family, and how you guys view the world, like your worldview?
Well, we have a saying in our home, and it's, you can do hard things and never give up. We do that. We say that every time there's like a little spark of defeat, or, whenever we see that in one of the boys. Never give up. We never give up. You can do hard things. We can do hard things. And
yeah, there's that. I think ultimately, like, they'll never understand, because people have told before we went through that season, like, seasons give you a heart for that, because you can feel it when you look back at it. Like what you guys have been through, you can feel it when someone else is going through that. Like, you don't just know it, you actually feel it, right? And so, like, I think that it'd be very hard for them. I don't know if they can ever grasp like that without being in it. I do think that the byproduct of that event, which is how we live our life and our actions, will imprint on them ultimately the result of how we process that event, right? So, like, whether it be trauma or whatever, like, how you process that event will show up in how you act and how you operate, and that itself will then influence your kids. And so it reminds me how much they see but don't say. And so, like, there's everything we do, they see. Like, they're completely soaking it in, right? So, like, if we can live the byproduct of that, then ultimately they're getting the reward from the learning we had by picking it up from us. And I think that living in Southern California with kids, it's a lot different. I grew up in upstate New York. My dad's a pastor. My parents didn't have much money. My grandparents had zero money, like factory workers, just completely broke. Like, as broke as you can get, still have a house. Like, just, and so the idea that we can get, it's really hard in this culture to actually build resiliency the same way that I was brought. My dad would just throw me like, hey, you want to work on a farm for a weekend? Cool, here you go. I'll pay you $1 an hour. Like, there was that, like, just transporting me into this, okay, and this hard work ethic stuff. It's really different now because of the way the world is, right? And so I think ultimately we can reinforce it with the way we act and the decisions we make. And then I think that we can also be very open about why we make those decisions. And I think that's what we try to explain to them, is like, hey, this is why we're doing this, right? But ultimately, they're going to build resiliency and character by going through hard things themselves. And so we want to make sure that we're not saving them from things that are actually building them.
Yeah, I always say, like, I want to be the stagnant, ever standing kind of pillar for our daughters, where they fall down and I clean them up. I don't stop them from falling down, though.
Right. That's powerful.
They have to learn from their mistakes and learn through failure, right? I think we all have, right? And so, before Alyssa has some rapid fire questions she wants to ask you. Before we go there, though, I would love to have you give us, like, describe the Morris family empire, the businesses, the things that you guys are doing. Give us kind of like the overview of how folks can explore the what you've built and how you're helping people. Because I talked about it at the intro of the show, of the 30 million meals for shelter dogs and 1.5 million raised for veterans with PTSD. Like, those are amazing numbers. Tell us about the businesses that are building that.
Really, the HomeLife brands is really the main portfolio companies. I have a partner in that, and then we're really actively involved in really the saving animals That's like a big mission of ours. And then saving veterans, like if you could bucket those two. And so right now we do that in a couple different ways. One, the main way though, is we actually build products that we sell, and every product itself, every transaction gives back in a very clear, measurable way. So like if your dog wanted treats, you bought dog treats from us, they feed 14 shelter dogs for every purchase. So it's like very measurable and actionable. And then we go ahead and feed 14 shelter dogs, and we show you the video of that happening. Like, here, this is what happened. Or you'll get an email or a campaign, hey, this is what we did because of that. So it's very 360. And so that's that one. The veteran the same way. So we're building products. And so the veteran side of it, everything started with both the what impact we want to make in the world, and then what do we think we can do with excellence, like at the same time. So, and I think that is a critical difference in how we think. And one of the reasons we've been successful, because it's less about like, oh, hey, this is really cool, I like this. Okay, then maybe we give some away. It's like, okay, well, how do we actually weave the story into this? So like the veteran stuff, it actually tends to be men's jewelry. And we've done a lot of stuff. It's like men's jewelry is what we sell, like men's steel bracelets and things like that, and medallions, and like to have a theme and a story for that audience that ultimately come back to how we're helping veterans with PTSD. So we have these e-commerce brands, and then those are sell products, not only direct to consumer, meaning online, Facebook, things like that, Instagram, TikTok, but also on Amazon as well. So like it's kind of, that's the ecosystem. So we're always adding new product categories there. But again, it all comes back to the focus of like every single transaction is a customer supporting this initiative.
Where can somebody go to buy the pet products or the men's products?
You can go to iheartdogs.com. That's one. Or iheartcats.com if you love cats. And then we have theherocompany.com.
Well, that's really beautiful. It sounds like you really found and pulled inspiration from, that experience that you had through your father being a pastor, and found a way to kind of make it a little bit more accessible to people outside of those different religious boundaries. So that's really lovely.
Giving back is central to what you guys are doing, which is beautiful.
It's a huge part of our life, personally and professionally. And it is something that we do want our children to also be a part of, for them to see and not just be told, this is what you do. So we do and let them have space in that part of life.
Yep.
And Marshall's also a veteran, a 4-year Army veteran. So it's something also dear to him to take care of those we love.
I think this is a pretty good point to start rapid fire questions. They're supposed to be just kind of like throwing it out there, simple stuff. It should be fun. You guys ready?
Let's do it.
What's your top thing that people have told you about building a business that turned out to be utter bullshit?
What do you think?
There's a lot.
Yeah.
Go. It's rapid fire. Hurry.
Okay. I think, oh, wow. There's so many.
I'll just say one of my most hated phrases in the business world is self-made. If you're that delusional that you really think you can do something all by yourself, like you're probably not going to be a huge success story. And I know that that's maybe the younger ones start out thinking that, but that's just a personal cringe that is the ultimate cringe phrase for me.
Yeah, I would say that I think that everyone wants the result, but they don't want to do the work consistently. Like if you said, hey, you can be a millionaire, but you got to work for 10 years, a lot of people might turn that off. Like, right? But if you're like, hey, you could be a millionaire in 30 days, it's like, I'm in, right? So I think that that's one of the things business is that you got to play the long game.
What extent do you drink caffeine, and how do you take it?
I'll do triple espresso, hot or cold, no sugar.
Yeah, so black coffee, or I'll do the same what she does. We have coffee every day, coffee date every day. Second thing I'll sub-nose, we are launching a coffee brand, 2 of them. One is going to be Found Hound, where we save dogs from death row, and there'll be a liquid on Amazon, concentrate. And then we're going to do one called Foxhole, which is actually the military version. So each have impact, but we're going to be in coffee. So we're going to be very caffeinated in the near future.
Yes, and he loves coffee. He drinks too much caffeine, and he drinks it way too late in the day, all day.
Yep.
And we,
oh man,
yeah.
So.
All night, no sleep. So as a couple, do you guys have a couple that you in your head aspire to be more like?
It wouldn't necessarily be a specific couple, it'd be a type. So it would be the type that is able to spend a lot of time together, experiencing new things. So, because I just think that there's so much relationship that grows when you're doing new things together, and I love new things, and so does Jess. So if we're traveling together, Like that's where you want to be, right? Or like going to a movie together during the day while the kids are at school, right? So I think it's a type. It's actually just being able to spend a lot of time together doing, just experiencing life and doing life.
And then what is the most recent experience you guys had that really made you kind of like light up and admire something about your partner?
I'll go first on this one. He does a lot of these, but big one. I don't even know if he's like told people he's close to. Let's see, January 1st, 2023. So a little bit over a year ago, Marshall decided to live a life of sobriety, and that one action turned into so many other actions. He did 75 hard twice in a row, back to back, so 150 hard, I suppose. He completely changed how he was fueling, eating, moving his body, and I just couldn't be more proud. Could not be more proud, and could not be more just thankful to be the recipient of like more years to have you in my life and for our kids to have dad around. So getting healthy, like, could not be more proud. Like, I'm his hype girl.
Jess started this journey way before I did. And I was kind of the guy who's like, that's cool, but whatever. And it was just the fact that she has, when she puts her mind to it, that like it's like black and white. It's for me, it's like there's a lot of gray to get there. Like, all right, well maybe for her it's like I'm doing it, and then that's it. Like there's no other color. For me, it's very like I'm trying. So I think that was part of this health journey. So that helped me and inspired me to then say, all right, it's time for me too, because like I don't want we want to do this together.
Amazing.
That's
I think
so
that is
sweet.
a great place for us to wrap up. I just want to say thank you so much, both of you, for joining us on Frank Growth. And you are the heroes. I know you call your customers heroes, but you guys are absolutely heroes.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. We love you guys. So we're going to do this more often.
This was so fun. Thank you for having us so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Frank Growth, a Winston Francois podcast. And don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts.